books have come to the point in 2026 where you can just read the title and you don't need to read the book, and you'll just get everything you need from the cover page. But there are a few exceptions. There is an exceptional book that I mentioned before called Americana, which is a multi-hundred-year anthology and study of American capitalism. It is exceptional. I've probably read it 3-4 times. And it's just an explainer of every single era and the key players and how they thought about this tension between labor and capital and how they were able to build value and create interesting businesses. And what you start to see if you read it a few times is just the repetition and the how history rhymes kind of a thing. I think that is an exceptional book. From an investing perspective, I've said this also many times, but there's a book from Michael Acevedo called Modern Poker Theory. And you would say, well, what the hell does that have to do with investing? I think that Michael's book is the best way of translating modern game theory in a digestible way through the format of a game, in this case poker. But the way that he writes and the math and the exercises are quite phenomenal. It anchors me a lot in how I think about portfolio construction and game theory and investing. Exceptional book. Anything by Will Durant is something that you should read. I think these books are very dense, very complicated. Anything by Nick Lane, I would also say, is worth reading. Also very dense, a little bit intractable at times, to be quite honest with you. These are not easy reads, but they're worth it. Will Durant has a book called The Greatest Ideas and Minds of All Time. That's probably the best Will Durant book, in the sense that if you don't want to read 1,000 pages of extremely dense prose, and you just want to get to the heart of it, he does a really good job of summarizing the punchline. That's a fabulous book. There are few books that are allowed to stay on my bedside table because I don't like clutter. Things need to be extremely clean and orderly. Otherwise, it's a sign of an unsettled mind, in my opinion. And it's just sloppy and ugly. But that Will Durant book has been on there for years. I respect that book a lot. I have attempted to read all of the major religious texts once. It's hard. I think the Bible is the easiest of them. The Quran is actually quite accessible as well, but it just takes time and it takes a level of commitment. I think these are important because I think they capture the historical allegories that just repeat over and over. Well, I was raised Buddhist. Thought that Buddhism was like a pretty useful place to be, but I found it in my late 30s not quite fulfilling. I came to the realization that I believe in God. I was looking for more of an explanation to some of the lingering questions I have, like, why are we here? Like, how did we come to be? Like, before the Big Bang, what was that? Those things can gnaw at me, these kinds of questions, but I think a belief in God has kind of calmed a lot of that. And I was like, okay, he's there. I didn't develop it from reading the text. I developed it because I had the questions, and that was the only explanation. Then I read the text to make sure that I wasn't totally off base, and I was like, yeah, this is right. I've really transformed my reading patterns. I used to read a lot of books. I now read an enormous number of articles. I read a lot on X, obviously, but the number of articles I read, scientific and otherwise, dwarfs my book reading. If you were to peer into my room at, from 9 to 10 every night, which is my kind of personal downtime, I am reading, but I'm rarely reading books anymore. I think that most scientific articles are good, not great, but I also think that for me, the key is the repetition and the skill of just reading these things over and over. My first thing that I would have read, I probably understood 1%. And now maybe I'm at 9 or 10%. It's been probably 5 years. Most of it I still don't understand, but I'm committed to it. I learn a lot and I'm absorbing a lot. It spans, I read economic theory, I read game theory, I read science, I read physics, whatever I think is interesting. I just kind of read it. Now, if I don't understand it, I can also feed it into ChatGPT or Claude and Grok and get a summary. I really believe in this idea of the prepared mind, which is that it's sort of where luck meets opportunity. And so the luck you cannot control, but the opportunity you can control, which is how you frame what that moment is to you. And the way that you frame that is by being prepared and having a prepared mind. And so being studied in the things that you think are important to you, that you're fascinated by, that you have the energy to learn about. It's just very easy to just stop. And it's actually quite hard and it's demanding to not. 9 to 10 at night is not a great time to actually try to digest and read technical things of which I only understand 8%. But I do it. And I do it because I will connect the dots in a random email that I get, and that will lead to a breakthrough. I'll give you an example. In my investing career, I spent many iterations trying to build these machines that can take small quantities of blood and analyze what's going inside in your body. It was like the tricorder that you saw in Star Trek. It was like, I always thought like that must be possible. Like, why isn't somebody building that? The first few iterations of that failed. And even though I had all these other failures leading up to that, I kept reading, I kept trying to understand like what were these things that were broken or wrong technically in our assumptions. And then somewhere in 2021 or so, I got a random inbound email from this incredible scientist. She talked about how she had developed this nanoparticle and that it can do this incredible level of sensing that was impossible before. I think I just posted about this, but she has this bladder test now, which is just a urine-based bladder test. Her sensitivity and specificity are completely off the charts. I understood enough of what she was saying where I was like, we got to figure this out. And so I remember jumping into it, and what I found was something absolutely incredible, and we partnered together, and it's been 5 years. My hope is that she and I will be able to build a business that makes early detection cancer tests for every kind of cancer. And so I feel very lucky that I met Dakshi, but I also feel like I had a reasonably prepared mind so that when that door opened, I was able to walk through it with my own 2 feet. That's how I think about it.